Colorado.
I'm Mike. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi,
My sobriety date is April 23rd, 1985, and for that I'm grateful. I want to thank the committee for inviting me. I'd like to thank Christy for extending the direct invitation. And so far, I've really enjoyed it here. This is wonderful. I don't know where all these people came from, though. Somebody asked me a little while ago if I'm nervous, and I just want you to know that I'm not. Because I've got a pretty good idea what I'm going to say, and you have no idea what you're going to hear. So if anybody should be nervous, it's you and not me. I do feel a little bit like a mosquito in a nudist camp, though. I know what to do, I'm just not sure where to start. A number of years ago, I woke up in the morning and I had a concern. And I laid in bed for a minute, and that concern turned into a problem. Nothing changed other than I was thinking. Well, I thought for a minute or two about my problem that I had created, and it turned into a crisis. So I went from a concern to a crisis in less than 3 minutes. Thank God I have a program, because I got up, I called my sponsor, I said, Howard, I'm coming to pick you up. So I went and grabbed Howard, my sponsor, and we went to Denny's. And I was giving my crisis to him. And he had his hands flat on the table, and he looked at me and he said, your life is in divine order, unfolding into goodness. And I thought, clearly, he does not understand the magnitude of the crisis that I'm trying to deal with here. So I regrouped and gave it to him from another angle. This time, he had his hands flat on the table, and he's looking at me, and he says, your life is in divine order, unfolding into goodness. Now, I think he was beginning to see that I was struggling a little bit with his response, and he broke it down for me. And he said, Mike, if you go back through your life as far back as you can go, and you look at all the circumstances and events that have occurred, you'll notice that the times that you were most afraid, what you were afraid of never happened. It turned out to be nothing. And those times where you wanted something really bad and you didn't get it, what you ended up with was better than what you wanted. And if you're real honest, you'll see how God has pulled a golden thread through each and every one of these circumstances and events that have led you to this moment right now. Now I had something I could do something with. And I brought that home. You know, in the 12 and 12, Bill W. in step 11 says, self-examination, prayer, and meditation, when logically interwoven, create an unshakable foundation for life. Now, when I came to the program, I was looking for a job, a girlfriend, and a place to live. And I'd have taken a girl that had a job and a place to live. Unshakable foundation was not something that I could see. So what I want to do is I want to go back with you and share some of the events and circumstances that happened along the way that led me to this moment now. When I was 7, I burnt the house down. We grew up in a little town outside of Buffalo, New York called East Aurora. Okay? And so not all that far from here. My dad was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he got sober when I was around 3 years old. My mom came into Al-Anon, and they both worked effective programs throughout their lives until the time that they passed away. So I grew up in this environment, but when I was 7 years old, I lit the house on fire. Now, I don't know that that was significant toward my alcoholism, but it tells a little bit about me. Because what happened, we had 7 kids in our family. I was a middle child. Okay? My dad was an alcoholic sober. My mom was Al-Anon and just a recovery home. That was what we really had. So when I lit the house on fire, we're across the street while the firemen are breaking down the door and running in with hoses and all this panic going on in the neighborhood. And I'm sitting there thinking, there ain't no way I'm ever telling anybody that I did this. Probably days later, it seemed like months, because I was keeping this secret. And I remember one day I went to my mom, and it was confession time. And with tears coming down my cheeks, I looked at her and said, "Mom, I did it." And she said, "You did what?" I said, I lit the house on fire. She said, "We knew that." Kind of the story of my life, you know. We tell on ourselves whether we know it or not. My brother John, he's my older brother. He's going to come have lunch with me tomorrow. But it was his first communion. And they did first communions in about second grade then. So he's my older brother, so I was in first grade. And we went and stole some beer out of the cooler. And we went in the woods and we drank it. You know, I didn't get drunk and I didn't feel an explosion and everything in my world wasn't right or any of that. I just went and stole some more beer and hid it in the woods. And I didn't tell John because I was planning on drinking it by myself. Now, I don't know if I was alcoholic. I have absolutely no idea. There was some thrill about the event that attracted me. So from that point forward, I tried to drink whenever I could. If you invited me to your house, I might look around and say, "Hey, your parents drink, why don't we steal some of their booze?" I had older brothers, and in New York it was 18 for drinking age, so I could get my older brother's friends and such to buy me alcohol. I always had a little money because I had paper routes and things like that. I was a hustler. And I could be self-supporting of my alcohol addiction. And it wouldn't be uncommon to find me down in the park any particular night of the week, sitting there by myself, getting drunk. And that was before high school. And I am not going to go into a drunk-a-log tonight, okay? I'm going to probably stop right there and just tell you that my first detox was in Children's Hospital. I was 15 years old, and they didn't have a detox ward at Children's Hospital. They had intensive care, and that's where they put me for 8 or 9 days while I was detoxing from the alcohol and the other things that I was doing. And while I was in Children's Hospital, my dad's AA buddies would come and see me during the day, and they would talk to me. And they'd bring me cigarettes. Things are a little different today. And they would encourage me to come to AA when I get out of the hospital. Now, the medical team, they'd come in and see me, and they would say things like, "Well, when you get out of here, you're going to need to go to therapy." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever I got to do, just get me out of here." And I don't want anybody mad at me. That was the thing. I wanted them to understand that this was an accident, that it wasn't supposed to be this way, and that I was really a good guy. And just let me out of here, and you'll see it's going to be all right. Well, so I agreed to those things, and I started going to counseling before I went to the AA meeting. And counseling was on Tuesdays, okay? And the counselor and I, he was a good guy, okay? But the reason I enjoyed going so much is we were smoking weed together. You know, I don't think the therapy was working. But it sure motivated me to ask, when's is it Tuesday yet? My first day, I got to give you a little bit of the environment that I grew up in too. So we lived on a main street, and back in the 70s, the New York State Police didn't always want to lock people up when they pulled them over. So what they would do is they would bring them to our house and put them to bed on on the sun porch. And my old man and his sponsor would take these guys to meetings. Our house was always filled with alcoholics in every stage of recovery, some of them not real close. One morning, my mom used to love to tell, she didn't do a lot of speaking, but when she was asked to speak, she'd show up. And she was always real nervous, but she loved to tell the story of my little sister Mary getting ready for school one day. And Mary was getting her breakfast ready, and there's a drunk at the table. And this guy's shaking and whining and moaning. Oh, I feel so bad. I can't believe it. I'm embarrassed. I can't believe it. This is so sad. And finally, my little sister looked at him and said, we've seen way worse than you. Nothing like ego deflation from an 8-year-old. So I knew all the AAs, okay? And I loved, growing up in an AA home is an event. Because, it really is. It's an event. It's not a boring life, okay? To have all these people coming in and out and this kind of, having dinner with us. And they would have the group anniversaries and stuff in our yard, and the AAs would throw money into the sandbox. And us kids would dive around trying to get it. And so AA was like fun, man. And so I knew everybody, and I was comfortable with everybody. I wasn't afraid of AA, okay? And I went downstairs of the police station, Orchard Park, Friday night, 9 o'clock, the Hillbilly meeting. They still meet there. It's still the Hillbilly group, and I'm sure you'd be welcome if you're in Orchard Park. Check it out. I go down these stairs with my dad and his sponsor. Now, when we got out of the car, I'm looking around to make sure nobody sees me. I really don't know what that's about. I go downstairs in the police station, and they had these long wooden tables and low ceilings. And over in the corner was coffee and donuts, and here you had some books, and they start the meeting, and they go around. I'm Bob, I'm an alcoholic. I'm Ed, I'm an alcoholic. I'm Dorothy, I'm an alcoholic. I'm Art, I'm an alcoholic. It comes to me, I say, I'm Mike, I'm a problem drinker with alcoholic tendencies. Man, I wasn't trying to be funny. It took me a long time of self-examination to understand why was it when I detoxed in Children's Hospital, when I can't stop drinking, and when I'm doing things that are uncharacteristic of the upbringing and the life that my family had given me, and here I am denying that I'm a real alcoholic. Now, the reason was because I didn't want to stop drinking. And I felt like if I said I was an alcoholic, it was some kind of announcement that I was going to stop drinking. And my father used to say things like, it's the first drink that gets you drunk. And I'd fight with him. Oh, God. What do you mean? You're a lightweight. What kind of alcoholic are you? The first drink. Man, you're wasting my time. And then he would say stuff like, well, if you're going to get killed by a train, would it be the engine that kills you or the caboose? Or I'd be like, well, now, wait a minute. I need more information. Why am I on the train tracks now? They'd say things like, if you waddle like a duck and quack like a duck and look like a duck, you're a duck. I go home and look in the mirror and think, am I growing feathers? What the hell's going on here, Because I just didn't get it. It was a language that I did not understand, period. It was a language that I did not understand. And the members of Alcoholics Anonymous began to love me. And they began to say, come on back, kid. We like having you here. Keep coming. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. And I would keep coming because they told me to, and they welcomed me. I would come. And I'd sit in those meetings in those church basements, and I'd think about how I could kill myself. Because you see, I lied to myself. I thought Alcoholics Anonymous was, you come in here, you stop drinking, and everything gets good. Problem was every time I stopped drinking, I got sicker, I never got better. I didn't understand that. I thought I was different than you because of that. And for the next 10 years, I continued to come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was never able to put 30 continuous days of sobriety together. I'd end up in the psychiatric hospital. I'd end up at Erie County Medical Center. It was crazy, but I would stop drinking, and the thoughts that I would have, it was so cruel what was happening to me that my head hated me so badly for the things that I had done and the things that I was doing. And when I would get sober or stop drinking, I would spend my time thinking about that. And because I didn't pick up the kit of spiritual tools, I was alone. And man, this alcoholic alone is not good. And I want to tell you, you can't treat alcoholism with isolation. And if you're trying it, don't. I got drunk and we get sober. And that's what I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous. I learned that I wasn't a bad guy who needed to get good. I was a sick guy who needed to get better. And there was a program here that could deliver that. And there were people there who could show me how to do it. Well, I continued to drink and didn't understand all of this. And continued. One time they were putting me in the psychiatric hospital, and the girl's doing the intake. And, she's asking me the typical intake questions. And while she's asking me the typical intake questions, I'm trying to explain to her that a life with me would be a good move on her part. Just, man. The things that happen, the people who put themselves on the front line. A lot of you guys are on the front line, man. And we're dealing with people who are dying. And thank God we have a program. Thank God that we have a program. We can be examples. So what happened to me was after years of failed attempts at getting sober and using everybody that I could use and taking everything I could take from everybody I could take it from until nobody wanted anything. Didn't want to see me, didn't want me around. And in April of 1985, I broke into a house in Buffalo because I knew the guy that lived there, and I knew he was a hunter, and I knew he had a gun because he used to live with me. And I broke into that house, and I couldn't find the gun. I looked everywhere, under beds, under mattresses, in closets. I just wanted to kill myself. I just wanted to be done. And I got to the top floor in that house, to the attic, and I looked out the window because I thought if I jumped out that window, I could kill myself. But I was trying to calculate if I should go head first, feet first, or just throw my body out. And I got to the window, and I looked out that window, and I saw 3 ladies walking down the street. I don't know if this was a hallucination, but they were wearing church hats. And I thought of my grandmother. And my grandma used to come over to our house after Mass on Sundays with her friends when I was a youngster, and they'd be wearing these funny church hats. So when I saw that, I thought of her, and I thought about the God that was given to me in my childhood, because I had lost connection with that. But it was the only God that I ever knew, and that was the God that was given to me. And I got down on my knees in that room by myself that night, and I said the same prayer everybody here. God help me. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to do a little talk on AA history. And when I do, I'll probably talk about Bill W.'s spiritual experience. But Bill W.'s spiritual experience in December 1934, he walked into the hospital and he's waving a bottle of ale. And he says to the doctor, "I got it this time." And the doctor says, "You sure do. Now go on up and sleep it off." And then a couple days later, the guy that originally met Bill at his house, Ebby, you read the story in the big book, okay? The kitchen table. So Ebby shows up at the hospital, and he's standing in the doorway. And Bill said he woke up and he saw Ebby in the doorway, and he thought, "Why isn't he out looking for a job?" Then he said, "Ebby, come on in." And the next thought was, well, maybe this guy is a guy who's really practicing what he's preaching. "Ebby, tell me, what was that little formula that you shared with me at my house over in Clinton Street?" And Ebby says, "Oh, Bill, you got to be licked. You got to be done." Boom. You got to believe in some sort of God, even if you try it as an experiment. You have to be willing to write down your life story and share that as a confession with another person and with whatever this God you're trying to experiment with. And then, lastly, you have to share this with another person. So Ebby shared this little formula with Bill, and then Ebby left the room. And Bill said, now Bill, you have to understand, had a lot of experience with depression. Okay? And Bill said he was in the darkest depression he had ever been in. And in the depth of that depression, he cries out as a child, "If there's a God, show himself." And he said the whole room lit up, a bright white light, and he felt like he was on a mountaintop, and he could feel the breeze of the Spirit, and he knew he had been released. That didn't happen to me. I drank all day. Had to do something to come off the cocaine. I made my way to a bar late that night. It was on a Sunday night, and I called the only person left. That was my old man. He got on the phone. He says, "Where are you?" I told him. And the next day, he and another alcoholic came and did a 12-step call on me. And it was in a diner in South Buffalo. We sat there, and we talked about my options. I didn't have any options. They were gone. I'd burned all the bridges. There were people after me. The legal system was looking for me. There was issues. There were some things that needed to be dealt with, and it probably wasn't real safe for me to hang around in that community. So it wasn't yet decided I was going to leave the community, but it was recommended I get detoxed first. So my brother brought me to the Erie County Medical Center, and they had called ahead and everything. I thought everything was worked out, and I walked into the lobby of the medical center, and the admissions counselor came out and put his hands up. And he said, "You can't come in here. You've been here too many times. We can't help you. You need to leave or I'm getting security." Well, where my brother's car was parked was a taxi cab, and I got into the cab, and I just said, "Take me to a bar." Because I didn't have any other answers or solutions, and he accommodated me, and it was an afternoon, April 23rd, and I'm standing in the bar, and I'm having a drink, and I look out, the door was open, because it was a sunny day, and a city bus pulled up, and an old lady fell on the ground trying to get on the bus. And for some reason, I went out, and I helped her get on the bus. I'll bet that drink is warm, because I've never had to go back to get it. And I got to tell you, one of the things that Ebby said when he met with Bill said, "What's this deal all about?" And Ebby said, "It's a new kind of giving. It's a giving without any expectation of reward or recognition." And I'm going back through my life, and I'm looking to see where God has pulled a golden thread. And I see the admissions counselor say, "You can't come in here." And then I see the lady fall to the ground, and I go out and help her get on the bus. And the next thought that came to my mind was, why didn't you kick her and take her purse? Because you see, that's the kind of punk I had become. But I believe when I said that prayer 2 days earlier, God help me, that the God that I believe in, the God in the invisible, began to do some things, and things began to get lined up so this guy could get sober. I thought, I've had the privilege of doing a lot of history stuff with it. And Bill Wilson's one of my favorite characters. And it's easy for me to be a little jealous of Bill and his spiritual experience. And I felt like I got screwed, and I never had one of these profound spiritual experiences. And here I am, 18 years sober, going back through my life, and I see the lady fall on the ground, and I didn't kick her, take her purse, and I'm thinking, dude, you missed it. You had a profound spiritual experience, and you missed it. Then I thought, I wonder what else I've missed. So I had to start to become more aware, pay closer attention to what's going on around me. And anyway, the old man decided that he would call a friend of his down in Texas. This guy was a circuit speaker, and he was an AA member, and he got sober on October the 28th of 1951. And my old man called him, and John said, send the kid down here for a couple weeks. We'll see if he wants the deal. He always called AA the deal, and he always called me kid. He actually had another name for me, but Howard asked me not to share it from the podium. So they sent me down to Brownwood, Texas. And this is where the story gets good, because this is AA. Big John has me come to his house, and he's got a one-bedroom apartment. He gives me the bedroom. He's 80. Gives me the bedroom. Now, the first night I'm there, he's pacing. And they all wore jackets at the time. And he's pacing, Kid, how long you been around the deal? With as much ego, okay, as I had left, I still want it to sound good. I said, about, 11 years. He said, I don't know if you have the guts it takes to make it. But if you do, we can show you by living proof how you never have to live this way again. And if you want to get sober, I'll go to hell and back with you. And if you want to get drunk, you can go to hell alone. I was waiting for Welcome to Texas. It seems like all this happened at once, and I know that it was spread out over a period, but it really does seem as though it all came at once. And John followed up and said, you are nothing but a thief. Not the kind of thief that'd kick in a joint or steal from his mother's purse. He knew my story. He said, you are a worse thief than that. Because you and me and every alcoholic have become nothing but thieves. And we're thieves of the worst kind, because we steal from those we love the most their right to happiness. Whew. That was John entering the cave where I was wrapped in a blanket of hopelessness and despair. And he grabbed me by the hand, and he began to lead me out one step at a time to the sunlight of the Spirit. But he was able to do that because he was an alcoholic that had a message of depth and weight. And that was what got me sober. It wasn't him, it was his message. The message of Alcoholics Anonymous is so important. 1947, Bill W. spoke in Memphis, Tennessee for 2 hours. And in that talk, he said, AA is a story handed down. It is. It's your story. It's my story. It's what we hand down. You see, our traditions, that first tradition, our common welfare comes first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. What that's telling us is that every single one of us is just as important as each other. There's nobody who's more important. We're all equal. And when we come into our meetings and we go into our business meetings and we want to look at these traditions, that first tradition asks us to sacrifice our desire to have our way so that we can create unity. Pretty simple, but it's difficult for an alcoholic. How do we sacrifice our desire to have our way? That takes a lot of discipline. So I was very grateful that I had people like John in my life to read the book to me, to quiz me. I swear it was like AA school on wheels. He would travel all over and he'd say, the kid's going to drive. And we'd be driving and he'd have this arsenal of books. AA Comes of Age, Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers, the big book, 12 and 12. As Bill sees it, he'd be reading to me. We'd be listening to cassette tapes. And then he'd be, what's Dr. Bob's address, kid? It's amazing. Now, John's best friend was a guy named Bill O'Neill, okay? And his wife, Arbutus, and Bill and Arbutus started the Midwest Tape Library. So like my second day in Texas, we go to visit John's best friend, Bill, and we pull in the driveway, and John says, "This is the largest AA tape library in the world, kid." And I'm like, who cares? I mean, I'm only sober a couple days, and I'm not sure I'm going to even stick around. I went in, and I met Bill and his wife, Arbutus, and oh, my God. A golden thread. All I can tell you is I would go to their house every day, and they had a little table, and they had a little orange coffee pot that was full of water, and then it had instant coffee. For you younger people, that's just dirt and water. But we go there every day, and they would be talking about AA history. They were filled with the history, all of these audio recordings and archives and materials that they had. And they were always talking about the history, whether it be Bill Dotson or Sister Ignatia or Dr. Bob or Bill or whomever. But I was getting this put into me every single day. And I was learning about our program, and I was growing to respect it. And I remember one day, and it was early, they were sitting at the table having a conversation. You know how old-timers sit around and have conversations? Well, I thought it was my turn. And at the time, I did not speak like I do today. Okay? I could get about a 7-word sentence out, and 3 of them started with F. Bill starts pounding one of his fingers down on the table and glaring at me with one of his eyes. And he says, the first thing we clean up in here is our mouth. I'm thinking, grumpy. Well, we got out to the car. Now, Big John, I had known John because he had been to our house a few times. So I was very comfortable with him. And we got out, and I looked at him and said, "What is up with Grumpy? You guys, you're not going to start telling me how I can talk. I'm 25 years old." He says, "Look," he says, "this program saved our life, and it might save yours. What Bill wants you to do is to have a little respect for the men and women who made it possible for you to be here." He said, "We knew some of these people. We knew Bill and Lois and Bill D." And so he goes on and he just says, "Look, he just wants you to be a good example. You might be the only big book that some new guy or girl come in and see. And he just wants you to be a good example." So I have to tell you that I bought into it. I said, "You know what? I can do that. I can respect this program and the people that came before us." And I began to feel like maybe I belonged. I wasn't quite sure, but I was beginning to feel that way. Now, one of the people that Arbutus sponsored was the co-founder's son, Dr. Bob's son, who was in Al-Anon. And he was over at the library one day, and we were just talking, and he said, did Bill or John tell you about the first guy that my dad and Bill W. worked with? And I'm like, oh, yeah, Bill Dotson, AA number 3, Akron City Hospital. And he said, well, Mike, there was a guy before Bill D. He said this guy was a bad drunk. I think he even said an agile drunk, okay? And he said he was bad. He said they moved him into Dr. Bob's house, and they were trying to get him sober. And he would go out the window at night, climb down the downspout, go get drunk. And then Dr. Bob and Bill would have to try to find him so they could carry this message to him that they were trying to get. And Eddie was too far gone. One afternoon, he was chasing Dr. Bob's wife around the house with a butcher knife. And Bill and Dr. Bob had to commit Eddie to a sanitarium. And I have a feeling that Eddie felt like he failed them. And man, I'm going to tell you, I came to you feeling like a failure. Like I was a failure in AA. I'd come here for 11 years, and I couldn't get sober. And I was a failure to my parents, and I was a failure to school, and I was a failure to my friends and the people who were foolish enough to give me jobs. I felt like I was a disappointment to everybody and a failure. And that's how I came to you. And Smitty looked at me, and he said, and my head's thinking, this guy and Bill and Bob must have felt like they failed him. And Smitty said, the story doesn't end there, Mike. He said 15 years later, at my dad's funeral, a guy walked up and extended his hand to me and said, do you know who I am? And Smitty looked at him and said, why, you're Eddie. And Eddie said, yes, and I've been sober for 2.5 years. I want you to know something. That message was so powerful that that's what's kept me studying history all of these years. Because you see, the story of the very first failure, who wasn't a failure because a seed was planted, God was still doing the work with Eddie. But for the first time in my life, I realized that Alcoholics Anonymous was not, and I repeat, was not a program handed down by the fortunate to the less fortunate. No, Alcoholics Anonymous was lifted up from the bottom up. It was people lifting each other up. And for the first time in my life, I knew I belonged with you in Alcoholics Anonymous. This was my home. And when Smitty told me about Eddie, there was no question that it could work for me. If it worked for a dude that they had to put in a sanitarium when they didn't even have the 12 steps yet, if it'll work for him, it'll work for me, and it'll work for you, and I know that. We are the fortunate ones. We are the blessed. So I began, that got my attention. I began to do what they asked me to do. Did they ask you to do stuff? They gave me assignments. Tonight, you're going to stand at the door, kid. And I want you to shake people's hands when they come in here and tell them that you're glad to see them. I think, man, I'll go to the door, I'll shake their hands, but that glad you see them stuff, I'm not so sure about that. I'm doing what I'm asked to do, okay? I had surrendered. John said to me one day, it was a couple weeks sober. Why don't you, or have you started the steps yet, kid? I said, oh, yeah, I've done step 1. I've surrendered. Oh, you have, huh? Good. He says, let me ask you a question. During that 11 years when you were bouncing around like an idiot, had you surrendered? I said, yeah. He said, how many times? I said, a lot. He said, well, then there's something more to this deal than surrender. And I'm like, tell me. I need to hear this, oh wise master. What do you think he said? He said, this program is as simple as ABC. We accept, we begin, and we continue. We hold on to the God of our understanding and try to help another alcoholic, and we do that, we're going to stay sober. All right, I can handle that. Now he gave me something else to look at. Was I not in acceptance of my own alcoholism? So this stuff began to get unraveled for me. But I'm so grateful that he knew the questions to ask. And anybody been around me knows I ask a lot of questions. I mean, poor Christy, driving me from the airport. I know what she did for a living. I know what she retired from. I know her husband's name. I know how long he's been sober. I know how long she's been sober. That's just what I do. I mean, Roger and I went out to dinner last night, and it was like I interrogated the poor waitress. But I've changed. Things have changed. I'm not the person I was when I came into this program. And the reason I'm not is because other people lifted me up and gave me enough encouragement that I was willing to do the work. Let's not forget there's work involved. There's effort. Yes, I believe God takes care of us. I believe that the main object of the book is to enable me to find a power greater than myself that will solve my problem. Okay? I believe that. But I also believe in carrying this message and being of service. I was telling you, I was door greeting. And one night a dude came in, his name was AJ. And AJ was an older guy, he had been sober a long time, and he was retired, and he spent a lot of time on the golf course. And AJ had a beautiful tan, always had a nice tan. And I think he used to wear light-colored shirts so everybody would see his tan. Anyway, he came into the meeting one night, and I said, "Hi, AJ, how are you?" And he said, "Fantastic." And I'm like, "Do you really mean that?" "I sure do. And it just keeps getting better." And the dude had 3 times as many teeth as you're supposed to have. And a smile went completely from ear to ear. And the first thing that went through my head is, I wonder if he's on pills. And I went home, back to John's, and I did my daily review. Because you see, I was taught to do that. And I saw AJ at the door. And I saw what AJ said to me. And I thought, I'm going to be more like AJ. I want to be more like AJ. So I started to change. I started going to meetings, and people would say, "How you doing?" I'd say, "I'm doing good, man. It's getting better." Now, that was a lie, okay? I mean, it was a damn lie, okay? But it was the greatest lie I ever told myself, because what was happening is I was reporting the facts just a little early, okay? I was reporting the facts a little early, okay? So if you're thinking you're having a bad day, change your mind and say you're having a good day. Big John used to say to me things like, "Hey, kid, would you make me breakfast today? And could you put a little yolk on those eggs?" And I'd cook up some bacon. There'd be grease flying all over, and I'd make them eggs. And I wasn't a cook. I never knew how to do any of this. And I'd give him this burnt slop, and he'd eat it and brag the whole day. "Oh, this kid is a cook. Best cook I ever had. Boy, is this kid a cook, man." So one time he said, "Can you make me spaghetti and meatballs? And could you make the meatballs round?" Apparently he's never been able to do that, okay? And well, I'd never made a damn meatball in my life. But my mom was a beautiful kind of half Italian lady, right? And her mom was a lot more Italian. And I grew up in this house where, they're making homemade pastas and all this. So John must have had some expectations. So I went to the little deli and I bought, because I knew the ingredients, okay? There's hamburger, there's eggs, and there's bread. So I went up to the little market. I got a loaf of bread, a box of eggs, and a pound of hamburger. And I remember it was a pound because I figured 2 guys, pound, that's good. So I went home, And I put the bread and the eggs and the burger all in a bowl, all together, the entire amount. And I mixed this stuff up, and it was slithering, okay? And it was, now, I grew up in Buffalo, so I can make a snowball, okay? These looked like snowballs, okay? They were white and just the egg, all this. And then I fried them in the bacon grease that was sitting on the stove from the morning because, I didn't really learn to clean up after myself yet. I just thought Mom did that, Anyway, I made and then I got some Prego or something, and I put these snowballs in this stuff, and oh my God. Literally, okay? I swear this happened. Now, it had to be somebody he knew, okay? But he would brag about this to everybody. So we're in a grocery store one night. Come on over here, young lady. I want you to meet the kid. This kid. I have no idea if he knows this person, if it's just a stranger. He's the best cook I ever had. I just want to ask you one question. Do you think I wanted to hang out with him? Come on. Yeah. You know why? Because it's a program of attraction. And he was giving me little things to do. And then he was paying attention to the little things. And he was complimenting me. And he was rebuilding me. He was helping me to become a man. I'm so grateful to him and to all who were around me for the things that they did. And John would read the book to me and I'd fight with him. He'd say, get out of the debating society. And I'd argue for an hour that I'm not in the debating society. How he put up with me. And I literally mean that. Sometimes we come in here and we're not all that lovable. And I wasn't all that lovable. I told you that he gave me his bedroom. I told you that he invited me for 2 weeks. What I didn't tell you is I stayed for 2 years. It would be foolish of me to not recognize that there are times in our sober lives that we have to inconvenience ourselves. This man inconvenienced himself by giving up his bed for 2 years. I hope I never bitch when I have to go on a 12-step call. I have to go get somebody out of jail. I got to go pick somebody up at the treatment center or drop them off at detox. Because these are the things that we get to do. You see, we get to be of service. It's not that we got to be of service. We get to be of service. I didn't have to come here. I was invited to come here. I get to come here. This is a privilege. This is something that is important for all of us. And there's someone out there tonight. That's been thinking, maybe life's a little too tough. Maybe I can't make it any further. I don't know if this AA thing's going to work. I want you to know that I'm here for you because I've been where you are. You see, just 5 years ago, I have 3 grown kids. Okay? 3 grown kids. Now, my daughter is suffering from Crohn's disease and several others, and she's had about 12 surgeries, and she's, really is close to a total care patient, with this. And we've been doing our best, but a few years ago, she was going to celebrate her 30th birthday. And she hadn't eaten cake in 4 years. I was asked to leave the party because I snapped. You see, I was carrying so much, and I wasn't doing the things I needed to be doing. So I was asked to leave my own home. And I'm sharing this with you because I was 36 years sober. You don't expect this at 36 years. You think you're some kind of saint. No way, man. I'm still one drink away from a drunk. I went out into the field, and the sun was setting, and God and I had a conversation. And the conversation was something like this. God, I haven't been doing the work. I hope you give me the strength to start. I called my sponsor, Bob B., the next day, and then Bob yelled at me for a while. And then he talked to me with love. Because you see, that's the language that we have. And he encouraged me to take some actions. And I began to take those actions. And I want you to know that if you're suffering from depression, get help outside of AA. Get help. Go. And I share that from my heart. And I tell you that you can suffer. At any point, you can suffer. You can be sober for many, many years and suffer. And I've seen people go back out with long-term sobriety. I know people who have died with long-term sobriety. This is not a done deal, one and done. We come in here, we're all better. This is a daily program. That's what the speaker this afternoon was saying. It's a daily program. That's what we're given. The book says we have a daily reprieve contingent upon the maintenance of our spiritual condition. And Bill W. was like a wordsmith. You think about the things that he wrote. Think about those promises. If we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. Why didn't he say we'll be moderately satisfied when we get to this point? No, he said we'll be amazed. Think about that word amazed and then ask yourself, is my sobriety amazing today? Am I being rocketed into the fourth dimension? Am I bringing people with me? Am I celebrating my recovery every day because I'm grateful? Do I wake up with a grateful heart? Not every day. But boy, most days, because you see, now I know. See, now I know that AJ was right. It just keeps getting better. That doesn't mean we're problem-free. Let me share some of that, because I don't want anybody to walk out of here and say, well, he was good, but boy, he's never had a problem in his life. I really don't want you to get that impression. So I began doing this kind of thing a number of years ago, and I had gotten back from a trip, and I was out in the garage, and I'm cleaning my garage, and I lived in Arizona at the time, so I had the garage door open, beautiful sunny day. It's probably 11 o'clock in the morning, and my musing was interrupted by the Chandler Police Department, who decided to raid my house. I found myself in handcuffs on the floor while they were arresting my son, next to my wife. And the first thought that went through my mind was, your life's in divine order, unfolding into goodness. Then the next thought was, so is his. And I want you to know that because of you, and that's it, man, because of you, I became Josh's cheerleader. I didn't try to be his sponsor. I didn't try to be his mentor. I just tried to be an encourager. I wanted to be a cheerleader. And when he gave me something to cheer about, I wanted to cheer about it. And he's sober 13 years. So. And it would be wrong for me to talk about Josh and Emily without saying that my oldest is Andrew, and he just brings so much joy to my life. He handles a lot of it. I run a nonprofit, and he handles a lot of administrative stuff for us. The nonprofit, I can just share with you that library that Bill and Arbutus had, the largest AA audio library in the world, we've enlarged it, and we've been digitizing it with the goal of making it available for all future generations of people in recovery. So. I really, really, really feel like I'm the most fortunate one in the room. And I think that's an attitude. So 2013, my brother Jim, he was my oldest brother. He called me up and he told me that he is sick with cancer. And we weren't real close, but we became close that last year of his life. And it was getting toward the end. And I asked him if he'd like me to come and see him, and he said yes, he would love that. So I made arrangements to go there. And I was pretty nervous about it. So I went to see Howard, and I said, Howard, I'm going to see my brother, and we haven't been real close. I mean, this year we've talked a lot and stuff, and he's real sick, and I don't think he's going to make it more than a few more days. And Howard said, his life is in divine order, unfolding into goodness. I got to see Jim on the morning, it was late at night, so the next morning we're having coffee, and he was down to just a skeleton of a person, and I'm rubbing his shoulders for him, and I said, Jim, I was really afraid to come here because I didn't know how to deal with this, and I went to see my sponsor, and my sponsor said, his life is in divine order, unfolding into goodness. And I said, Jim, he told me that years ago. But then he gave me an assignment. He said, go back through your life and look at all the circumstances and events that have occurred and the times that you were most afraid. What you were afraid of didn't happen. When you wanted something that you didn't get, what you got was better than what you wanted. And if you're honest, you see how God has pulled a golden thread. So over the next 3 days, Jim and I went through his life. And we talked about the things. And there were things that I recognized. And that was when he was of service to his wife, who had passed away a year before. When he was of service to her and he was sacrificing golf and the things that he had to sacrifice to help make her life a little bit better were the times that he felt the best. Those were the times where he felt the most connected. I left there understanding that his life was in divine order, unfolding into goodness. And it was absolutely a beautiful experience for me. He passed away 2 weeks later, and I went back to do the eulogy and the funeral, and I did that. And my mom drove me to the airport when I was going home, and she said, I don't want to go in. I got a little cold. And I said, oh, Mom, you don't need to go in. I gave her a kiss and love you and see ya. And a couple weeks later, she got sick. And they put her in the hospital. Now, the diagnosis was pretty much undiagnosed because they were just trying to figure out what was going on. Well, as each day would go forward, something else would stop working in her body. And it finally came to the day before she was going home to be with her father. She woke up in the morning and she said, I want Mike here. Now, my mom and I did not have any unfinished business. But when I got the call, I went to see Howard. Howard reminded me that her life is in divine order, unfolding into goodness. And I got to the hospital. And the room was filled with children and grandchildren. It was late at night, and we all prayed. We were holding hands and saying prayers. And next thing you know, everybody's gone, and I'm sitting on the side of my mom's bed. And I looked down at her. I'm holding her hand. And I said, Howard told me to say hello and that your life is in divine order, unfolding into goodness. And she looked at me and she smiled and she said, I know. Get this, man. She's hours away from dying, okay? And she said, do you have your phone? I'm like, yeah. Call Josh. Josh, this is Grandma. I love you. I am so proud of you. I want you to stay sober. Keep doing what you're doing. Can you call Tim? Tim, I'm so proud of you. I love you. You have a good start. Stick with it. Stay sober. I love you. Wow. And I thought, what a testimony. Here this lady's hours away from dying. She's got probably 25 grandchildren. She wants to talk to the 2 that are sober in recovery. This program is powerful. What we have is powerful. Now, I was troubled by, why did she want me there? And the next day after she passed on, I was on the phone talking to somebody, and I think I had said that. I don't know why Mom wanted me here. My sister-in-law came up to me and she said, "No, you don't understand. She didn't want you here for her. She wanted you here for us." When I left Buffalo in 1985, there was nobody that wanted me. And for my mother, dying wish to have me there because I can bring something positive to the family when she's gone is the greatest testimony of Alcoholics Anonymous I can possibly give you. All right, so we're getting too heavy here. I don't want to keep giving you a list of people that died. But I can tell you this, that we're alive. Dr. Bob, in his last talk, said that if you took Alcoholics Anonymous and you simmered it down to just 2 things, those 2 things would be love and service. Love and service. Love and service. Now, we know what service is. Service is love in action. I believe if Dr. Bob would have meditated on it a little longer, he might have said if we simmered it down to 1 thing, that 1 thing would be love. As I've traveled and experienced this life and journey, I've had a lot of time to reflect and meditate and try to expand my spiritual consciousness. And what I've really come up with is God is love for me. And I get to see that in demonstrations of kindness. So everywhere I look, I see kindness, and that's God smiling, saying, "I'm here." And when I take and put forth the effort to be kind, I can feel that I'm pleasing to the God of my understanding because I'm giving away love. A bell is not a bell until we ring it. A song is not a song until we sing it. Love wasn't put in our hearts to stay. Love is only love when we give it away. Alcoholics Anonymous is only Alcoholics Anonymous when we give it away. Thank you.